Hey, I'm Marco Brown. I own Brown Family Law in Salt Lake City, Utah. And coming to you today, we actually have our new law clerk, Andrew. And this is just going to be a conversation between me and Andrew. It's his first week, so he gets to ask me any questions he wants. This is part of the one-on-one training that I do with the law clerks in our law clerk program. So that we tape it, give law students an idea of kind of how we do things in Brown Family Law, and give you an idea generally about how things work in family law, well, at least at good family law firms. So we'll just, we're just having a conversation here, so hopefully the conversation is interesting to you.
Yeah, so I guess my first question for you today, I'm somewhat entrepreneurial minded, and obviously what you offer here on the business side of things is very interesting to me. And I kind of want to know, for you, how did you find clients and how did you start selling them in the world of family law? And what did that look like 10 years ago when you started this, 5 years ago? And then kind of how does that look today when you're finding people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So 10 years ago, I started with zero, no clients, nothing. I came back here to Salt Lake because my wife wanted to get a doctorate. So we went to the U. We graduated from BYU, but she wanted to go to the U, and that pained my soul. But whatever. So we came back here, and I just started with zero. So the way I started doing it was, and I knew nothing about any of this at all. So I just started meeting with other attorneys. I started networking with other attorneys as much as humanly possible. I'd go out to lunch with them. I would talk to them. I'd do anything just to meet other attorneys, right? And try to get, them to refer me cases. And at this point, I'm taking anything that comes in the door. And that was one part of the strategy. And then the other part of the strategy was to get a website and just write content. Because I thought I was going to do criminal defense at the beginning, so I just started writing criminal defense content all the time, which sounds really rudimentary now, right? Because it's 2022. But in 2010, that was not, like, you had a website and you wrote a whole bunch of content for the website. That wasn't what attorneys normally did. So, eventually we ended up with like 400,000 words of content on the website, but that's after I made the switch to family law. But that was a massive, massive amount of content for a very long period of time when much larger law firms downtown, they just had these kind of postcard websites where they didn't actually have content on them. So they weren't getting SEO. They weren't doing anything like that. It didn't really it didn't make any difference to them whatsoever. They were just relying on their attorney network, which works, but it's not advertising and it's not really marketing. Right? Okay. So that's how I did it in the beginning. But I always tell, when I meet with people that want to start their own law firm, I tell them the first thing you do is to create the best relationships with your best referral sources, which is always going to be attorneys.
Okay.
And law students, like I tell law students, one, go to law school in the geographic area that you want to practice in, and then get to know every attorney you possibly can in that geographic area. Just start having lunch with as many attorneys as you possibly can, get to know them, because if you know all of them when it comes to your 3L year and you're looking for a job and 50 attorneys, 100 attorneys, 200 attorneys, like you getting a job is assured. It's so much easier when you know the players. And even if they're not going to get you a job and you know them and they like you, they're going to turn you on to their friends who have jobs for you.
Okay. And then
that was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And 5 years ago, how things changed. I've always been an ad guy, so then it started morphing from just lots and lots of content to like paid ads. So more Google pay-per-click and figuring that aspect of things out. So spending money and having specialized advertisement and really honing down like how that world functioned, and that has been very good for us over time. Those pay-per-click, and now because this stuff changes all the time, we're making a huge push into SEO again because Google changed their algorithm. So our like 400,000 words of content don't really mean anything anymore.
Yeah.
So we have to like recategorize and reschema everything. So like we're paying a whole bunch of money right now for outside contractors to say, okay, this is how we need to develop the website. This is how it needs to be structured. We have to rewrite this content in this way and so forth. So, we're spending a lot of time and money doing that right now. And since we're expanding into other states, we have to retool the entire website anyway to make it Utah specific and then like Arizona specific, but then also be able to expand other states after that. So the game really does change, and eventually you just have to spend money to hire experts to tell you like how the game is changing and what you do. But there's that aspect of it. But when push comes to shove, you're always going to get your best clients from your really good attorney network referral sources, right? So that's kind of I think that's the base for pretty much everybody. And then you can lay ads on top of that and, layer it. And that's where you make big money, is by doing both of those things. Okay.
Do you also feel like at all, like as you build solid relationships, you have good experiences with clients? I mean, divorce is kind of a negative experience, so it might be a different beast. I don't know. Do you feel like those clients end up referring other people? Do you get clients from other clients, or is that not really?
Not a ton. So we could probably be better about using our network of past clients. That's probably one of the areas that I don't do terribly well in. And it's something we need to work on. But I think even if we worked extraordinarily hard at it, they still wouldn't get a ton from them. So our referral numbers are, well, the last time I did this, what was it? Maybe 5 to 7% of our referrals come from past clients, and then probably another 10% from other people that I know, like CPAs or therapists, somewhere in that line. But about 80 to 85% come from attorneys.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I tell people, like, our experience has always been, and this is probably different if you're a PI attorney, right, or a criminal attorney. This might be a little different. But I always tell people, like, my experience is that your referrals are going to come from other attorneys. So be really super good to your colleagues and then get to know them, as many of them as you can, and have like good relationships, and deep relationships with your colleagues.
All right. And then, so as far as like having like those deep relationships, do you feel like, what are some ways that you would recommend law students like myself to get out there and meet these attorneys? Like, what sort of things should we be doing to have lunch with attorneys and things like that?
I think you can just email them. The way I did it when I started, and the way I would do it if I were a law student, is to say, hey, look, I'm a law student and I'm going to practice here, and I want to get to know my colleagues even before I graduate from law school and I take the bar. So I really want to get to know the attorneys in the community, see kind of what I may want to do afterwards and who I may want to work with and what type of law firm I really resonate with. I'd love to be able to pick your brain for an hour, and I'll pay for lunch. You might not be able to do it if you're a law student, you're like super poor, but do something like that. And you as a law student, because I think I thought this way, like, that's ridiculous. There's no way that they're going to do that. Like, they're going to take that time. The vast majority of attorneys will take the time to sit down with you and talk with you. Like, there will be, I've talked with other attorneys about this a little bit, and a couple of them will say, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's ridiculous. That's just them trying to pick me. I'm like, yeah, you jerk. Like, of course, like, don't be a dork, right? But the vast majority of attorneys are more than willing to do that and to give the time. Like, they were super, super generous with me in the beginning, and I had nothing to offer them at all. And they're going to be the same way with law students. I'm that way. Like, if a law student wants to sit down and have lunch with me, I will absolutely do it. I do it all the time with students from the Y and the U.
Sounds good. Thank you. I was also wondering, so as far as the practice of family law is concerned, what do growth opportunities within, I guess specifically here at Brown Family Law, for incoming attorneys that want to work here, law students, what do the growth opportunities here look like? What's the trajectory of the firm and the people within it?
Yeah. Okay. So we're expanding in the sense that we just hired our 7th attorney. So including me, there are 8 attorneys. We'll hire another one within probably the next 2 months, and probably another one after that by the end of the year, because our trajectory is that way. So we're growing here in Utah, and then we'll go into other states as well, because we have a good system, and I am a kingmaker, right? Well, I'm not a king, I'm a kingdom maker. So I want to grow this thing and really make it large, because as we make it large, one, we help more people, we have access to more cash, right? We make more money. And then the opportunities for the attorneys increases, because then there are other leadership opportunities, and there are increased opportunities to capital, right? Because when they sell more, they get paid more. There are just more opportunities all the way around as you grow. So that's why I make growth a really big push.
That's awesome. And then as far as like myself, so if I'm here at Brown Family Law, what does growth look like? What kind of opportunities are there for me to continue to grow within this firm?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first you pay your dues.
Yeah.
Right. You are lower than the paralegals.
Yeah.
Right at this point. And it's not that the paralegals are low, but like, you're coming in, you don't know anything. Like, you do what the paralegals tell you to do. You do what the attorneys tell you to do. So you got to put in your lumps. And I had to do that same thing when I started. I knew absolutely nothing, and I just had to figure it out. And I asked other attorneys to do it, but I had to do everything under the sun. So I don't have a problem making you do everything under the sun and then learn. But as you learn, and as you get better at family law, like figuring out how mediations work, figuring out how to talk to clients, be empathic, answer their questions, do the paperwork, do all these things, then you'll get more and more complicated things to work on. You'll have more contact with the clients and conversations with the clients, more autonomy under the cases. Like, you'll be helping attorneys, but you'll have more autonomy to do that sort of thing. And then, eventually I would imagine that as we sit down and you get the skills that are necessary to close clients, like, you're going to have that opportunity as we go along, which just gives you access to more capital, right? So it's kind of that growth. That's a little bit different because you're a law student, but like, I don't know why you wouldn't have that upward trajectory if you do the things that everybody else has to do to get access to more money and more opportunities.
Yeah, and then I guess I understand. I haven't been here for like a week, but it's been 5 days. But I feel like it seems that most of the attorneys here, like, they kind of handle the entire vertical of their own cases.
Yes.
For the most part. And is that kind of what you're planning on doing even as you grow? Is that what the anticipation is? Like,
yeah, so the model really is each attorney has his or her own cases, and they have 30. That's the optimal number. So they have 30. They run their cases. We run attorney heavy. So if it's substantive work, the attorney is almost assuredly doing, with the exception of the financial declarations, right? But they oversee the financial declarations, and they pass off on those before they go out to the court.
Yeah.
But if it's substantive work, the attorney's doing it, and we don't run paralegal heavy. It's just the way I've chosen to run the law firm, and there are reasons for that. I like like working with attorneys more than I like working with paralegals. I just, I get along a little bit better with them. I think the system runs really well this way. But yeah, that's the idea. And then we can replicate that at each of those attorneys and put them into teams, right? And we have a set way of doing this so we can grow in a really orderly fashion. And then we can replicate that structure in other states. And I know that that's going to function because I have hundreds and hundreds of friends all over the United States at this point that are attorneys and divorce attorneys. And they all have the same problems. They all have communication problems. They all have getting paid problems. They all have these types of problems. And we've just gone through and solved the problems. So I know that when we go to Arizona, like we're going to be dealing with a whole bunch of colleagues that have the same problems that we have here. And when we go to Denver or whatever, they're all the same problems, and we've fixed those problems. So I know that we're going to be able to expand and make it work.
Yeah, and I like that we have an entire, and that's like the thing that I think stands out to me that as of right now still makes me want to work here when I graduate is like, I like the idea that the attorneys have the entire vertical, because if I were to go to, like this is being videoed so I won't use names, but like if I were to go to, you know what I'm talking about, like other law firms downtown, we have like attorneys here. We have like Amber. Amber graduated like 2 years ago. She's excellent, but having been only graduated for 2 years, if she was working at these other places, like she wouldn't have a vertical of a case.
No.
She would take the very bottom work for that case, and then she would pass that on. She has the horizontal level of the dirt, and then like she passes that on to the grass, and then that goes up all the way to the sky, where the senior partners actually get to do anything substantive. So I think that that's pretty cool. Just for me, it doesn't really affect. Like, I guess it's not a question for you, but it's just a statement. Like, when you're recruiting other people, I feel like that does appeal to particularly people like myself in the law student position. Like, we're looking to do something that is somewhat substantive. I mean, everyone wants to. We know that we have to still pay our dues, but the idea that we get to have that vertical, we get to take the case. We're not just going to do part of it, and then when it comes time for mediation, we pass it off to someone else. When we do that for years, we're going to get practice.
Yeah, and that's the model. But the funny thing about that model is that so often you have law students that give up huge amounts of money to not work in that model. So you go work at the public defender's office for 2 years or 3 years, making just garbage, because you get the vertical, right? You get to the entire case, and you have autonomy, and you can learn really fast, because doing the entire vertical forces you to learn very, very quickly all aspects of the case, right? And all aspects of the law firm. So you have people giving up lots of money in order to take these like garbage paying jobs so they can get the experience. So when I thought through this, I'm like, well, why don't I just do the same thing and pay people well? They don't. So then they don't have to leave, because when you get to the public defender's office or the prosecutor's office, I think the average is 2 to 3 years, right? 1 to 3 years actually, and then you go do something else where you can make more money doing kind of the same thing. So if you're Josh Barron, you work there for like 10 months at the prosecutor's office, and then you go do your own thing and you make a lot more money doing it. And I just thought, well, why don't we give that kind of experience, but you don't have to move somewhere else to make more money, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of my thought when I came up with the system.
Yeah, and I appreciate that for sure. Like, definitely makes me want to be here, because I understand like the idea of like doing like you said, like take your lumps, but I don't need to do that for 10 years.
Yeah, like, exactly.
So I'm excited to learn that way. So, and my other question is, when you are looking at your attorneys, and this is at like different levels, so excluding me as a law student, like when you're looking at a younger attorney here, and maybe you're looking at someone who kind of seems to oversee the office like Clay, like what are you looking for from those attorneys to help you achieve growth? What can they do to not just add substantively to like the process of the cases and resolving these cases for our clients, but what can attorneys do to propel growth, both for themselves but also within the firm, or for the firm, I should say?
Yeah. So this is part of the system that I've had to change, and I'm still figuring out exactly what this looks like. Because in the beginning, I had absolutely no expectation that anybody would contribute to that side of things, because I'm the rainmaker. Like, I make it rain, and I'm still mostly the rainmaker. That's still mostly how I think about it. But I realize as we grow, each individual person has to contribute to that a bit more. So, like, I've changed things now where as an attorney, I'll give you a couple $1,000s a year to go network with other attorneys, or build clientele, like bring people in, and then I'll give you a cut of the people you bring in, right? So that's organic growth that isn't necessarily tied to our advertising or tied to me as a person and my attorney referral sources, right? So you can go do that. So that's one way that we're going to increase, that they're going to be able to contribute to the growth in that sense. But you have to incentivize those sorts of things. So we've come up with a system to incentivize it. And we're just putting that into effect right now. But I anticipate that most of the growth that we're going to do is still going to come from kind of the marketing and the advertising, and then the attorney referral. Like, we just opened an attorney referral program not too long ago. But that's more dependent on me than anything else. So I think that's mostly where it's going to come from. I think the best way that attorneys can contribute to it, honestly, is you come in and you serve your clients exceptionally well, and then you bill your hours, right? Because when you bill your hours and you're up where you should be, then that creates capital that we can then use to advertise. So that's the first step, is you bill your hours and we collect those, and then it gives us the ability to go find other people so we can help more people. That's always the base of it. And then doing that really, really well helps with 5-star reviews, which helps with, it just makes getting clients a lot easier when there are like hundreds and hundreds of 5-star reviews like we have.
Okay.
So I think that's the biggest component of it. It's like taking that, because that takes a lot off my plate when I don't have to worry about the money side of things, and I know that you're serving clients exceptionally well. That takes off a huge amount of worry from my plate, and I can go do other stuff and make it rain. So I think that's the beginning part, and then I'm going to give you some money so you can go network, and you can bring other people in, and then they'll cut you in on it. Okay.
And then I guess, so if you're, I understand like you're doing it mostly by yourself right now, but let's say you move into Arizona, you move into Denver, you move into Idaho, you move into, let's say, even Nevada. So they have very different laws. So I don't know if you actually
I'd have to sit for the bar.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how to get around that a little bit, but not that I'm going to break the ethics rules. That's not what I'm saying, but
yeah. So maybe not there, but let's say
it's tough in Vegas. I want to get into Vegas, but it's really tough. Yeah.
Maybe even a few other states, whatever. At a certain point, like, you feel like you're gonna have to delegate even like some of the rain making to other people. Like, at what point do you feel like you're gonna feel comfortable like delegating that out to other people, and like what kind of qualities, what sort of traits in the attorneys that you want to delegate that out to are you looking for?
Wow. This is something I haven't thought through. So what are the traits?
And I guess I ask this because I don't want to be like, I'm not trying to be this right now, but as I go through the trajectory of my career, I don't want to be like an okay attorney. I want to be an excellent attorney. I want to be the attorney that, if someone is my boss, their company is growing, like they trust me as an individual to take those reins. And
no, it's a good way to think about it. Because like I always say, attorneys don't work for attorneys work for rainmakers, right? So you got to figure out how to be a rainmaker. Like, and that's probably, when I look for traits of people that I'm going to pass off the marketing to and those aspects of things, they have to be that type of person. Like, that has to be their jam. is the
Okay.
marketing and sales and closing clients and then training other people to do those things. So I've had to, this is a switch that I've had to make very, very recently. This is still tough for me to say, but I don't actually consider myself an attorney anymore. I consider myself the CEO of a legal enterprise. Like, I lead law firms at this point, which means that can I get in and still, run a trial and do it at an exceptionally high level? Yeah, I don't want to do that stuff anymore though. Right? Like I literally don't want to do it anymore, because what I want to do is I want to identify talent and lead people that can do that sort of thing, that can help our clients exceptionally well. But I don't want to do it personally. And that means that I have to remake myself. But eventually, you're right, it's going to get big enough where I have to lead the teams that do the marketing stuff that I do right now. And I'm just going to have to find people that are really good at the sales and closing and marketing components. And that is not something that's taught in law schools. That's something that you simply have to learn, right? And that's the entrepreneurial part of it. That's the business part of it. So, like, if that's where you want to go, that's where you're going to make the most money in any law firm anyway. So you have to learn those things. And that's part of this process.
Yeah.
As we sit down and we go through this, you come to morning sales meetings and
we practice
these
closing
things.
clients,
Like, that's why I think it's really super important, and I want everybody coming in here to do those things, because that gives them access to more resources and opportunities and capital.
Yeah, no, that's part of the reason I asked this question too, is because I want to take the trainings that I'm getting here, which are valuable, and I'm not going to probably have much opportunity elsewhere to do, and capitalize on that. So It's like, I don't want to just be like, I'll close and sell clients when they come to me. I want to think about ways that it's like, how can I maximize what I've learned here in order to close more clients, to find more, to lean into the more entrepreneurial side of business growth. And so
now,
and I guess I'll also ask, are you looking for, like, and I don't know what the legalese on this would also be, like, are you looking to hire attorneys to do these positions for you as the company grows, or are you looking to hire outside of that to handle?
Yeah. I always feel that it's, I mean, at this point, I'd like to hire attorneys to do that. Like, I want to facilitate the talent within the law firm to be able to do that. If it gets to, the point at which it's like a Cordell and Cordell, they're the large national firm, right? They have attorneys doing it. They have attorneys that are on top of the system, but I guarantee you they have professional CMOs, CTOs that are coming in that are not attorneys.
I don't even know what those are.
Chief marketing officer,
okay.
Chief technology officer,
yeah,
right? That are coming in, and they're not attorneys. Like, our CMO is not an attorney, and I still head marketing ostensibly here because, like, I own the place. But eventually, it's going to get to the point where more and more of those experts are not attorneys. But at the same time, I want to develop the talent as much as possible in-house to have attorneys do it, because I think with law firms there's something, we're just special, and maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong, but I still think that there's a fair amount of value in attorneys being heads of these processes to make sure that we don't just look like any other service-based business or place that makes a widget, because we're not really a place that makes a widget. We are a little bit different, and I think attorneys realize that.
Okay, yeah. So, like,
it's probably not the most satisfying answer, but
no, that's what I'm looking for. So, like, I work here now. I understand what makes this place special. But let's say, like, back in the early days when you were kind of like just starting out, what did you do to really differentiate yourself from other attorneys in the area that were doing similar things to you when you were approaching clients, when you were trying to sell? Like, what'd you do to make yourself different and like really stand out to them?
Not much. I was terrible at it in the beginning. Like, I was just like every other attorney, really. I just tried to be super responsive. So I would answer the phones on Saturdays, answer the phones at 8 o'clock at night. I'd do anything to get a client back then. But I was also getting every client under the sun and doing everything because I was so scared and I just needed cash. And that was a horrible way to go about it. So I talk to attorneys a lot about this now, and I just tell them, like, I did so many things wrong in the beginning. If I had it to do it over again, I would have specialized in one thing, and I would have come up with my features, advantages, and benefits, right? Which is the unique selling propositions. Like, how do I do things differently? And I would have identified those, and I would have told them to everybody under the sun. But I didn't do any of that in the beginning. I just tried to be really responsive, and then be kind of cheap, and probably cheaper than the other guy, and which is again not what you should be doing, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I did in the beginning.
Okay. And as far as, I like what you said there, specializing in one thing and then focusing on your features, advantages, and benefits. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want to expand on that a little bit? Like, what is...
So features, advantage, benefits. I didn't come up with this. This is Grant Cardone, like straight up Grant Cardone. I learned this at the sales training I did with him. I'd kind of done this before a little bit, but he identified it and kind of laid out how you should do it, and it's just absolutely brilliant. So a feature is a feature of your service to the client, okay? And then the advantage is the specific advantage or how that feature specifically advantages the client. And then the benefit is like the benefit, a kind of more esoteric 10,000-foot view, like how does this really benefit me in my life? Okay, so our ultimate benefit that we talk to our clients about is we maximize the time with your kids and we maximize your money when you're going through divorce, right? Like, it's the relationship. It's money and relationships. And we're going to maximize both of those things for you. So from a 10,000-foot view, that's what we're going to do for you. And then how we're going to accomplish that is through features and advantages. So, the first one that I go through with people is communication. Communication is the number one complaint people have with attorneys. Call and can't get a call back. So we've solved this problem. This is like directly from the script that I talk to people about. So that is the feature. We communicate really well. And then how does that advantage you? It puts us on the same page, working toward the same goals, and gets cases done quicker. So we have a feature, which is communication. Then we have the advantages to the client. And then I just go through and I do that. I have like 8 features that I do that for. So lay out the feature, lay out the advantage, and then I get to the end and say, okay, all of this is designed to get you this ultimate benefit, which is to maximize the time with your kids and to maximize your money. And that right there that's how you sell, right? That's how you sell people, and that's how you close people. And so that's what, if I could start things from the beginning, I would have done one thing, and I would have figured out what our features, advantages, and benefits were, and I would have just said that 100,000 times, right? And with every human being that I ever interacted with every potential client.
Okay. Do you feel like you're kind of, you say with every human being, do you feel like you're kind of engaging in the process of sales with the other attorneys you're trying to build this network with? And how does that work? What does it look like if I'm an attorney, I'm sitting down with Marco Brown, you want me to refer clients to you? Yeah. What does that engagement look like? What do you do to maximize the chances that I'm going to refer clients to you?
Yeah. One is that you don't, like when I sit down with people, I genuinely enjoy my colleagues.
Yeah.
So if I go to lunch with you, it's probably because I actually want to go to lunch with you.
Okay. Yeah.
I really want to help my colleagues. Like, I want to help them live better lives and have better law firms. So we talk about that a lot, and I will give as much as I possibly can to anybody to help them do that. So that's kind of where I come from. And then I literally just don't expect stuff in return, which is kind of a sales tactic, to be honest with you. But I just try not to care. Like, I just want to get to know my colleagues. I want to like them. I want to help them as much as I can. And I realize when I do that, they're going to know, like, and trust me, and they're going to refer people to me, right? And then, I mean, the other thing, and I just did this yesterday with an attorney I sat down with. So I sat down because I find him to be a really interesting guy, and we had a really interesting conversation about a big law firm here not too long ago. And I was like, hey, how'd you structure that deal? How'd you do this? And we talked through that, and we talked about family, and we did all these things. And then in the end, I said, hey, look, we have just to let you know, we have an attorney referral partner program. So you refer a divorce case to us. They're with us we hire them. They're with us for 90 days. I'll send you a check for $1,000. So go tell your attorneys that, right? So there's an incentive.
Okay.
Like, I can now give, because our ethics rules changed a little bit, I can now give a specific incentive to people for them to refer to us, but that's not the way people refer to you. Like, the money kind of sort of helpful, but if you're a complete, jerk, like, they're still not going to send you stuff. They still need to know, like, and trust you. So that's what I try to do when I sit down with people.
Okay. Was that the guy we mentioned this morning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know you could incentivize.
Yeah, you can with attorneys. They rewrote, I think it's Rule 5.4 to make it a ton easier. We could in the past, but it was much more difficult. So attorneys just made it a lot shadier, and now we can do it out in the open. Still can't do it with non-attorneys. We could for like a week, and then they changed the rules back. But yeah, we can do it with attorneys now, and I just thought, oh, okay, now it's time to give back, right? Like, I'm just going to be generous with the people that refer clients to us.
Yeah, I guess it's probably not super applicable, but why do they care if they're attorneys and not attorneys? Like, what is that?
So
affect?
The idea is that we have these absolutely arcane ethics rules. Until very recently, we couldn't, for example, solicit in real time a client. Okay, so what the whole point was, we don't want ambulance chasers literally going to the ambulance and saying, hey, sign up with me on a PI case or something like that. But they had this idea of attorneys is so, like, almost magically persuasive that they couldn't allow them to speak in real time with a human being, lest we'd be able to overcome their ability to say no to us and they would have to hire us, right? It was just based on this absolutely, like, magical idea of attorneys. But they're so stupid and arcane, these rules. But until very recently, we couldn't do that sort of thing. So that the one good thing that they did with the rules was to take all that stuff away, thankfully. So now we can just act like other human beings advertising and trying to get clients. But really, the idea behind a lot of these were we don't want to incentivize the predatory potential practices of PI attorneys, is what it comes down to. So PI attorneys, because and I'm not ragging on PI attorneys, it's just this is the way the ethics people think about this. Their cases are so high dollar value that they will pay off doctors. Like, you give me a referral doctor and I'll give you $10,000, literally. Like, and they can do that in some cases because these cases are so high dollar value. And the ethics people kind of thought that's predatory and we don't really want that to happen. So we're just going to make this blanket rule that you can't pay non-attorneys for referrals.
Okay.
That's kind of the thinking. Whether or not that has any sense to it whatsoever or is persuasive is another deal, but that's kind of how they thought about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought about that at all. So here at Brown Family Law, when we take on a client, I guess I've gone through some of this already, but it's my first week. What do the steps look like towards the end of having a client? How do we collect payment? How do we, tell them, like, yeah, it's done, it's finished, and then kind of let them go on their way?
Oh, okay. So the way we collect payment is we have what's called an evergreen retainer. So they pay upfront. Our retainer is $39.50, so they pay the $3,950, and we always keep it at $39.50. So we'll dip into it, we'll take it every month based on what we build on the invoice, right? And then later on in the month, we replenish the retainer. So we always have $39.50 in the till. And that's to ensure that we can do work without getting into the negative. You never want to get in the negative because then you become a banker instead of an attorney, and no one likes their banker, right? So we don't do that. But that's how we keep going on cases. And then when we get to the end of the case, we're done with everything. We close out the case. We're finished with the divorce. We send them the divorce documents. We send them a closing letter, congratulate them on getting through the process. And then we look and see how much they have left in their retainer, and we put it in the closing letter, like you have this much left, and then we refund the money that's in their retainer.
Okay. And then and then I know that here we often are proud of the fact that we have like the most 5-star reviews out of any law firm here in Utah.
Not out of all the law firms. Like there are other law firms. Siegfried and Jensen has
divorce.
Like a couple thousand of them, which makes me jealous, right? But yeah, of the ones that do divorce, we have the most. Yeah.
So what is the process of talking to people about 5-star reviews and things like that? Like, how do we ask people to give us a review?
I kind of prime them when I first meet with them, in the sense that I need to be better about this. I need to make this a better, more of my script when I meet with people. But I'll tell them, one of the features that I talk about with people is the 5-star reviews. So we have this many 5-star reviews today, and that means that I check it every day and ensure that we're doing excellent work for our clients, right? That's the advantage to them, is we're doing excellent work for our clients. So I prime it when I first meet with somebody as a potential client. And then, throughout the process, we're kind of telling them like, hey, we do good work for you. We'd like you to give us a 5-star review if you're comfortable with that sort of thing. And then at the end, when we've done a really excellent job for them, then we ask them just straight up, hey, will you leave this for us? And we get an answer out of them. And then right after that, we email them the link to give the 5-star review, or we text it to them. And then if they don't do it, then we follow up with them and hopefully until they actually give us the review.
Okay.
So there is no real easy way. Like, you can automate this. You can automate the system. They have automation systems, and some attorneys use it to great effect, but there is no substitute for doing excellent work for your clients, telling them you're going to ask them for one, asking them, and then following up with them.
Okay.
Just no way to get around it.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't write this one down, but to follow up with that, is there anywhere else that in your experience you feel like any other platforms or something that you want to ensure you have a good reputation on as a law firm outside of just Google reviews? Is there somewhere else you want to?
So Avo I used to, but Avo is a piece of trash now. So no one's thought about Avo for years, so that doesn't really hold. Outside of Google, so Google Maps uses Yelp. For some reason, it doesn't use Google reviews. I don't know why, but they use Yelp. Or is it Google? No, Google doesn't do that. It's Apple Maps.
Oh.
Apple Maps will use Yelp. That's what it is. So I can see why Apple doesn't do it. So yeah, they'll use Yelp. And Yelp, depending on where you are in the country, is either used a lot. Like in California, Yelp is like the place you go when you want to figure out who to use, right? Yeah. But in Missouri, no one cares. And in Utah, no one cares about Yelp. Yelp is in Utah is a repository for crazy cranks, essentially. And it's really hard. So for us, it's really hard to get people to leave a Yelp review because you're not supposed to ask them to leave a Yelp review. And then I've had multiple times that people leave positive Yelp reviews and then they're just gone, right? Like all the bad ones are there, but the positive ones just magically disappear. So I would like to do a lot better on Yelp because when people use Apple Maps, it does come up.
Yeah.
But I'm really not all that. I don't put that much time and effort into it. Google is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and I just want to feed Google whatever Google wants to be fed.
Gotcha. Yeah, I kind of assumed that Google was the by and large primary factor in this, but I just wanted to see if there was anything else that you guys are worried about. So
No, not that really preoccupies me. Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's all I have for today as far as my questions
Okay.
that I wrote down. So
Cool. Good questions, man.
well, thank you. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about all of this. So is there anything else like you want from me? How am I performing, or do you have further expectations?
Yeah.
What can I do?
We'll do this part off camera.
Yeah.
And then we'll do this again next week. So
Sounds good.
okay, awesome.
All right, thank you.